Bloomington Township to order. And we're going to go ahead and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yeah, and just to clarify really quickly, it's 5:30, just for the record for later. All right.
Okay.
Trustee Matthey.
Here.
Trustee Bolin.
Here.
Trustee Montney.
Here.
Trustee Emig. Trustee Becker.
Here.
Trustee Carrillo.
Here.
Trustee Ward.
Here.
Trustee Crable.
Here.
Trustee Crumpler.
Here.
Trustee Milewamble.
Here. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that members of the trustee board would like to remove? Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
If we could have a motion and a second. Yep.
I'll make a motion
Sorry.
to approve.
And I'll second.
Got it.
Okay,
Yep.
motion by Trustee Bolin and second by Trustee Crable. Madam Clerk, now would you please call the roll?
Yes. Trustee Matthey.
Yes.
Trustee Bolin.
Yes.
Trustee Montney.
Yes.
Trustee Becker.
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo.
Yes.
Trustee Ward.
Aye.
Trustee Crable.
Yes.
Trustee Crumpler.
Yes.
Trustee Milewamble.
Yes. Thank you. The item passes. There are no nays to announce. Next item on the agenda is item number 5, workfare agreement between Home Sweet Home Ministries and the City of Bloomington Township to continue administration of the POTS workfare recycling program. At this point, I believe we have Township Supervisor Skillroot on the line.
Yes. Did you want me to explain anything about that?
Yes, if you could. Yes, if you have anything to say, that's up to you.
Well, our previous contract was for 3 years. And in the great partnership, or with the great partnership that we have with Home Sweet Home Ministries, we asked for an extension of the 3 years. It would take quite a bit for us to find a new place. So we wanted to secure it for a little longer. And we did ask for 600 more square feet because we are very tight in that spot. Some of the square footage, very minimal square footage, is for collecting the pallets of recycle in-house so they don't get wet. And then they're easier to transport to the semi when we send it to East Jordan. So with that came $6 a square foot, a little bit more, but it is in the budget.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve this item?
Motion to approve as presented.
Okay, motion by Trustee Matthey. Is there a second?
Looks like you have Trustee Bolin with her hand up.
Okay, second by Trustee Bolin. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Matthey.
Yes.
Trustee Bolin.
Yes.
Trustee Montney.
Yes.
Trustee Becker.
Yes.
Oh, I see Trustee Emig now.
Yes.
Thanks. Trustee Carrillo.
Yes.
Trustee Ward.
Aye.
Trustee Crable.
Yes.
Trustee Crumpler.
Yes.
Trustee Milewamble.
Yes. Thank you. The item passes. There are no nays to announce. Next item on the agenda is extension of cleaning services agreement with Soaring Eagle Cleaning Services. Once again, Township Supervisor Skillroot, I don't know if you have any comments or anything to add.
No comment with the 1 year extension. So we have time to prepare an RFP.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much. Is there a motion to pass the item as presented?
I'll make that motion to pass it as
Okay,
presented.
motion by Councilmember Trustee Bolin, and I see second by Trustee Crumpler. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Matthey,
Yes.
Trustee Bolin,
Yes.
Trustee Montney,
Yes.
Trustee Emig,
Yes.
Trustee Becker,
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo,
Yes.
Trustee Ward,
Aye.
Trustee Crable,
Yes.
Trustee Crumpler,
Yes.
Trustee Milliwamble.
Yes. Okay, the item passes. There are no nays to announce. Next item on the agenda is a presentation with a recommended action plan of property condition assessment prepared by Farnsworth Group by Supervisor Skirrud and Michael Burgess of the Farnsworth Group. So do you have let's go ahead with the presentation then.
Okay, so minimal investment has been made with the township building since 2003 when it was built. Since 2017, township staff has been preparing the purchasing policy. It was approved by the board, and we set aside carried over in the line item for building repairs. That's line item 1044. We've done this without an increase in the levy, and we do not plan to increase the levy, and we have not increased the levy for 3 years. The township's chosen Farnsworth as to develop the plan for the township building in the site, and that's listed in your memo for the reasons why. They were not the builders, but the architects for this building originally. And they're very well known in the community and have done a great job. But what I'm asking the board, or hoping the board will accept, a proposal timeline that was partially listed in your memo. And I kind of want to go over that with you before you have any questions and before I introduce Michael Burgess to discuss questions and talk about the high priorities. On June 28th, we will be requesting the board to accept a proposed budget amendment to address the property condition assessment projects that we plan for 2022 fiscal year. So our fiscal year, goes from March to March 31st, April 1 to March 31st. Now, on June 28th, we are placing that on file for a 30-day time period. And with that 30-day time period, the only way we could fit that in and make the aggressive construction timeline and the bid and construction timeline is to move the July meeting to August 2nd, hoping that there is a meeting of the whole on the first and third Mondays of the city council meeting, so it wouldn't be an inconvenience to the Board of Trustees. On June 28th, Township's going to present and seek contract approval for the Farnsworth proposal for them doing the bidding assistance and construction administration for this big project. Farnsworth has agreed to prepare the bid specs and send them out for bid by July 26th. August 2nd meeting is when we are asking for the board to approve the amended budget ordinance, and that'll be on the agenda for June 28th. Now I'm going to go through a little bit more of the timeline toward the end there. August 4th is the advertising for the bids for the parking lot and the ADA sidewalk. Those are the top projects we plan to do. August 16th, the bids are due. August 23rd, it will be presented, the contract for approval, and the bid awards will be presented at the August board meeting. Township intends to designate a capital fund for our levy, but we couldn't do that until we had a plan in place and that it was developed. And now tonight, Michael Burgess, who is the senior project architect, is going to share with you the highest priorities and answer any questions and how they came to this assessment. So anyway, I think now's the time I can introduce him and maybe he can talk about that, and then we can open it up for questions. Does that sound right?
Sure, let's go for it.
Okay, Michael, thank you for joining us today. I don't hear you. Is your mute on?
I was just granting
Okay.
the privilege.
Okay, there we
Meeting.
go. We got it now. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, so this is Michael Burgess. I also have Jeff Gastel, our civil engineer, on the line, and I believe Jason Kaufman, our mechanical engineer, is in your waiting room. If you could allow him access, they may all be using my same login.
See, it looks like we've got two different Michael Burgess in right now and a Nicholas Hauska as well.
The two Michaels are me and Jeff Gastel.
I'm Jeff Gaston, one in the video. Yeah.
Hi.
Okay.
If you guys want to get started, I'll ask our IT. There's nobody in
Okay.
the waiting room right now. Sorry.
Thanks. And I'm sorry, I'm having limited capabilities on my end as well. I don't have a video option. I'm not sure what's going on, but thank you, Deb, for the introduction. Yeah, so we completed the report recently, identified code deficiencies, maintenance deficiencies throughout the facility, and prioritized them either as ADA, as 1 year, 2 year, or 10-year timeframes for our suggested remediations. Of the highest priority items in there, one of them was included was the site, which I'll let Jeff talk about in just a minute. Some of the other high priority items were the exterior masonry walls, which exhibited some efflorescence and cracking and just generally need to be tuck pointed, and perhaps a new waterproof.
We lost you a little bit, Michael.
He actually just popped off on as an attendee with a call in.
He'll probably join us
Yeah.
again.
I'm back. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
we can hear you.
Okay, and I have more capabilities now too. Start video. Maybe you can see me. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. All right.
There you go.
Hi. So yeah, those are some of the higher priorities. I'll let under the direction of Ms. Gilrude, we've been asked that the first thing to address would be the parking lot and the ADA curb ramps out there as a first proposal to come before your next board meeting. I'll yeah, I guess you have the packets. Is there any questions about what has been presented so far in terms of priorities?
Well, the pictures were telling
Yeah. Yeah.
of the need.
So the ultimate findings were that for the parking lot, at least, the concrete panels themselves are in very good shape. It's the joints that are failing, and that if left will continue to degrade over time. The ADA curb ramps do not meet compliance, and so recommended those be changed. And there's a few other cracks and damages on the sidewalks, so that if the parking lot is holistically redone, I suggest doing the curbs and the walks all at the same time, both for an economy of scale and for aesthetics, etc. Yeah, we examined several options for remediation of the parking lot, from just spot joint treatments to where we eventually landed with a whole removal and replacement of the concrete panels. We looked at asphalt, looked at concrete, and this ultimately turned out to be the most economical and the most desirable by the township. We have Jeff Gastel, which I said is our civil engineer, on the line. If you have any specific questions regarding pavement, longevity options, like that, he'd be welcome to field those. Deb, is there anything else you'd like us to cover?
No, the board just received their proposal. They may have questions in the, after it, there wasn't a whole lot of time to go through it.
Fair enough.
If there are questions in the future, certainly I would ask the board to contact me, or Michael, would you be fielding some questions that way too, is fine, but they can come through me and then we'll forward it on if I don't have the answer. But it is true that the concrete work is the most challenging one for us because of the cost, but can you explain how we can increase the longevity if there is, something greater than what we've experienced so far with the joints of the concrete.
Yeah, Jeff, I think I'll let you field that one.
The joints in concrete mixes all over town have been failing over the last 5 years or so. Kevin Cothe did a report on the mixes that were available back in the 70s, and he's done some kind of a correlation to possibly influencing some of the problems they're having today. But basically, it's the salt that gets trapped in the joint. And if there was any joint filler in at the time it was poured, fine. But joint maintenance tends to go by the wayside, and the salt stays trapped in the crack and mixes with water, and then when you drive over it, it deteriorates the joint. So regular maintenance of the joint with either a caulk, a self-leveling caulk, or a hot poured joint sealer every couple of years will help to prolong the joints and then the integrity of the panels. The panels out there right now are really in pretty good shape, the bulk of the panels, but it's the joints that have deteriorated and keep spalling. Every year we put salt on it, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. So to extend the life of the concrete pavement, I would certainly recommend a regular joint maintenance every couple of years, or maybe every 5 years. Some municipalities do it every 5 years, but they have a revolving MFT fund for that. So,
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I was going to say, Trustee Millambo, you're on mute.
Yes. I realize that one of the hazards of Zoom. Goodness. So yes, it looks like we have a couple of questions here. Trustee Craybill, Matthey, and Ward in that order.
Deb, thank you. So Deb, this is for you. Will the cost of this be coming out of the administrative fund?
It'll be coming out of the general town fund. Mm-hmm.
Okay, not the assistance fund, right? Of course.
Correct. Can't come out of the assistance fund.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Matthey. And bear in mind, we only have about 12 minutes before our council meeting, and we still have 2 reports.
I appreciate that. Deb, thank you for bringing this. This is something you and I have talked about for the last couple of years, so I appreciate you bringing this forward. I got a question for either Michael or Jeff. The building is really not that old, but you have a whole bunch of ADA deficiencies listed on here of things that I thought were in the ADA code for a very long time, like countertop heights and things of that nature. I mean, was it built incorrectly, or am I wrong that the codes changed on these things? I'm just curious why we're comparatively, the building's not that old, and why we've got such a high dollar total to fix and bring things back into compliance.
Mm-hmm. No, that's an excellent question. I'd say in general, things were built incorrectly. So it was in 2003. And full disclosure, Farnsworth Group did the drawings, but also full disclosure, it was sort of a design build project. We did some partial drawings, it was handed over, and then the contractor finished up with none of our construction administration oversight. So I cannot tell you what happened from when we did our drawings to when it was actually built. That is, I'd say, most of them, yes, probably did not meet code at the time. Several of them, the code has changed since then, especially the Illinois Accessibility Code, which just in 2018 was adopted, the newest one, to become more in alignment with the International Building Code. Like, for instance, the restroom clearances around the toilets did meet the previous Illinois Accessibility Code requirements, but does not meet the current one.
Okay.
And so at that point, it's a matter of you don't really need to fix them now unless you would like to be compliant. Nothing is forcing you to be in compliant with construction that's already done. It's just a good thing to do.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of high dollar total ones too, like the window controls above the max height. That's, I was looking at, that line item says it's $29,000, and I was just like, how did that get through the last round of something that big that was off, that much? So, okay.
I'd say I think it's just something that got missed by the contractor and design professionals at the time.
Okay, and Deb, I'd be curious if we have anything where we could go back to the contractor to if they built things outside of the specs that they were given. Just something worth looking at. It could save the township quite a bit of money if they deviated from the drawings, and now we're having to fix those issues. So that might be something worth talking about in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember, Trustee Ward.
Yeah, I have a question also with regard to the stakeholders who might or might not have been contacted or involved in conversations around this. I noticed that it talks about community groups and interested persons contacted, that township staff worked with legal counsel and the Farnsworth group. Were any disability groups given the opportunity to offer any input?
No, sorry. Yeah, no, the scope of our investigation is based solely around current code deficiencies and maintenance deficiencies, not necessarily a polling of community groups and stakeholders for wishes and wants and other desires.
Yeah, I guess I'm not looking at it so much in terms of wishes and wants as it is the previous question seemed to raise some issues that perhaps folks who are in the disability community might have noticed early on. And so I'm just lifting that up as maybe moving forward, it'd be a good idea to involve them from the get-go.
I can interject about the windows. I mean, no one's ever, from a handicap perspective, or disabilities, no one's ever really approached us at all on that. That was the first we'd heard of it. We do use our windows and open them up occasionally on a good day, but clients or the public, when they come in, they don't have that ability. The biggest concern that we have is the automated doors to make it easier for them from an outside actuator being used instead of right on the wall.
And would that have been something that would have been expected to have been in place when the building was built?
I can't answer that, Michael. Maybe you can.
Could you do that very briefly, because we have 5 minutes left, I think, or 7. We need to move on to the next.
Maybe we can for you at a later time, board, and I can back. I don't know the answer. Okay.
Sure, I can say that in general, automatic door operators are not required by the accessibility code. If they're in place, there's a couple clearance requirements that are associated with those, and those are addressed in the report. And in general, the broader question, I would say offhand that most users of a building may prefer something that's not required by the code, or most often just accept something as this is the way it is and not know that is not meeting code, which was the focus of our report. That almost all accessibility infractions, unless someone like us is hired to holistically examine them, are only on a complaint basis reported to administrations or AHA, and most people do not know often what is required by code and what is not, I guess.
Okay, thank you very much. And I believe this is just presentation only, right? So no motion needed. Okay, all right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is reports by elected officials. So we'll start with Township Supervisor Deb Skillreads. You have 2.5 minutes, and
I will keep mine. because I would like the assessor to be able to speak as well, or
Sure.
assessor. Okay, I just wanted to say that thank you for bringing Mr. Garrett Talgett, to the cemetery board. He was, this is his initial appointment, but he was serving Dean Lorch's appointment, and he has been absolutely wonderful to work with at the cemetery. He has good insight and not his knowledge of OMA, other things, and his love of history of the cemetery. It's just been really wonderful. So I appreciate the fact that you have appointed for another 6 years. Thank you. And everything else that I have is in my board report.
Okay. Thank you very much. And next we'll have Township Assessor Steve Scudder.
Good evening. I didn't have a written report this month. I'm more interested in seeing what some of you trustees would like to see reported on the assessment and property value side in the months to come. I've kind of went through the same things over and over. If there was something new or interesting that you might want presented for information to make any decisions in the future, that's all I wanted to report on tonight.
Okay. Thank you so much. Steve, what you might want to do, I would say, because we have new trustees, maybe you can send a compilation of what you've presented before in the past so people can see and compare.
I can do that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments?
We do not.
Okay. Awesome. So next item on the agenda is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Trustee Bolin, second by Trustee Massey, I believe. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, awesome. Quick bathroom water break, and we'll be back at 6.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Can everybody hear me? Okay, awesome. Good evening, everybody. The time is now 6 o'clock, and I'd like to call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. If we can go ahead and say the Pledge of Allegiance and observe a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Matthey,
Here.
Councilmember Bolin,
Here.
Councilmember Motney,
Here.
Councilmember Eming,
Present.
Councilmember Becker,
Here.
Councilmember Carrillo, okay, Councilmember Ward,
Here.
Councilmember Crable,
Here.
Councilmember Crumpler,
Here.
Mayor Miller-Lombray.
Here. Thank you very much. At this point, we will have our City Manager Gleason, provide a COVID-19 update.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. A couple of updates. With the CDC ruling about 2 weeks ago, about a week and a half ago, we made some changes with our city operations and wanted to share those with the selected body and also the community. From now on, with our facilities that have been open, the hub, which is the city clerk's office that can be located at the Government Center at 115 East Washington, that's been open to the public. The foyer at the Bloomington Police Department and other venues and arenas that the city has are in fact open. We as an organization are going to follow the CDC guidelines, and if a resident of our community has been vaccinated, they do not need to wear a mask in a city facility or socially distance. Did not want to put the city staff in a position that they were going to question if a resident had or had not been vaccinated. We're just going to accept the fact that if a resident is not wearing a mask, the assumption is that they are aware of the CDC guidelines and have been vaccinated. There are some one-offs, if you will, where masks will be required of the residents. And that, the zoo, we have some enclosures where the air filtration system is not the best. And the animals that we have are very susceptible to disease and colds. And we're requiring all employees, obviously, but also all residents that choose to go into that arena or facility at the zoo that they will wear masks. Signage is there for the patrons as well. For our city employees, following CDC guidelines, those that have been vaccinated do not have to wear a mask and do not have to socially distance. And then as an organization, effective Tuesday, June 1st, day after Memorial Day weekend, the employees up to 60% will be returning to in-person. That's a rough number, allowing my department directors to decide what capacity they need for their individual departments. And of that 60%, those that are vaccinated do not count towards that total. So just wanted to provide those two updates regarding my COVID portion of the update. And then real quick, the arena is still open for vaccinations. While those numbers are down, we do have a steady stream and encourage everyone to strongly consider a vaccination that's been expanded for a much younger population as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, City Manager Gleason, for that update. Next item on the agenda is recognition and appointments, and I don't believe we have anything, do we, Madam Clerk?
That's correct. There are none.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to our public comment. Do we have any public comment?
And there were no public comments, commenters that registered or emailed this week.
Okay, well, moving right along then. We're going to go ahead and move to our consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that any member of the council would like to have removed for further discussion? Okay, I see Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull 8M, please. M as in Mary.
Okay,
I'll
or as
se-
in Matthew.
Or, yeah, that works too.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. All right, are there any other items that you would like to have removed? Anybody else? Okay, seeing none.
Motion
So
to
we're gonna
approve
go-
as presented with the exception of item 8M.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Matthew, and second by Councilmember Baker. Okay. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Mappy,
Yes.
Councilmember Boland,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward. Oh, I see you're shaking your head. Thank you. Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. The consent agenda passes with no nays to announce, with the exception of item 8M. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and move to the public hearing, and we will look at
Mayor,
item. Yes.
we should talk about 8M first, please.
Well, I was going to do that on the regular agenda, but Madam Clerk, should we?
Yeah, so usually we would just address them right there under the consent agenda
Right
and then
there?
move on
Okay.
if that's okay.
Okay, all right, sounds good then. Let's go to 8M then. And I'm going to go ahead and have Madam Clerk, actually, City Manager Gleason address this item.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate that Alderman Matthew pulled this item. This was a staff recommendation. This is regarding the lease agreement, the longstanding lease agreement that we've had with the United States Postal Service at the Market Street Garage area for the downtown office. Staff had entered into a lease agreement conversation and had landed on 3 years, which was acceptable to both parties. But after the agenda had been published on Friday morning, and now we requested of the United States Postal Service to shorten that lease term from 36 months down to 18 months. They were agreeable. And the clerk, I believe, has the language for the amendment, and that's before council for approval as amended at a term of 18 months for the lease agreement for the post office downtown office at the Market Street Garage. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So is there a motion to approve this item as presented by staff?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Motion by Councilmember Emig. Is there a second? I see Councilmember Jamie. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
All right. Councilmember Mappy,
Yes.
Councilmember Boland,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes.
Okay, the item passes and there are no nays to announce. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing. Public hearing for the 2021 Annual Actual Plan as requested by the Economic and Community Development Department. And the public hearing is now open as of 6:10 p.m. Madam Clerk, is there anybody registered to speak?
So we do not have anyone that registered to speak. We do have Jennifer Toney on to give a presentation.
Okay. Jennifer, the floor is all yours.
Hi there. I'm just going to pull up my PowerPoint and see if you guys can see it. So, can you guys see that?
Nothing yet.
Okay, hold on one second. I'm not sure if I have the ability to
Here,
there we go. Okay, thank you. Okay, so tonight, I want to share a little bit of information about the 2021 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan. As we go through this, I just ask everyone keep in mind that we're talking about our new programs for 2021. I'm not really going to address much of our COVID programming that we have going on because those are actually 2020 activities that will carry through, but we won't have any new funding going to those. So they're not actually added into this action plan.
Hey, Jennifer, just so you're aware, Phil and IT has actually put your slideshow up. So if you'll just tell him to move along, he'll help you.
Okay, thank you. You can move, Phil. Sorry, I thought I would have control. So when we do the CDBG programming, every year we do an annual action plan, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. But there's a bigger document that's our 2020 Consolidated Plan. And that is our guiding document that we address all of our action plans tie back to that plan. And the 2020 annual action plan is actually the second year of our 5-year plan. And tonight, what we'll do is I'm just providing an overview, and we'll have an open public hearing for the public to provide comment. We officially open up for public comment tomorrow. We have a 30-day public comment period, and this will come back to council the second meeting in June for final adoption by the city, and then we submit it to HUD for final approval. Bill? So when we talk about our 5-year plan, these are the goals that we said we would address. We did a very robust outreach campaign and a lot of data analysis. We partner with the Town of Normal and the McLean County Regional Planning Commission. And when we went through all of that, we came up with these 5 goals: the preservation of existing affordable housing stock, elimination of slum and blight conditions, supporting the provision of public service activities, provide quality services and public facilities for all residents, and administer the CDBG program in an efficient and cost-effective manner. Next slide, please. In addition to the goals, we had to establish some high priority areas, and we have some medium priorities as well, but we usually can meet all of our high priority areas with the funding that we have. So this slide shows all of our high priority areas for our public services, but those that are in orange are the ones that this year's action plan addresses. So we'll be addressing homeless services, housing discrimination services, renter assistance, and senior services through our public services. I do want to mention that our public services are capped at 15%. And so we're a little bit limited on the amount of funding that we can provide for these types of activities. Bill, next slide, please. So then the other area that we have high priorities identified for is public facilities, infrastructure improvements, and housing activities. Again, those in orange are the ones that we're focusing on this action plan. So accessibility improvements, affordable housing preservation, business support, demolition of blighted structures, homeowner housing rehabilitation, and sidewalk improvements. Next slide. So when we look at how we're going to select our activities for each annual action plan, several years ago, we went to a competitive process. And so that involves a request for proposals or an RFP every year. This year, we released the RFP in about the middle of February, letting people know that applications will be accepted through the month of March. We advertised in the Pathogram, the city's website, the city's social medias, other social sites such as GRID, and I'm drawing a blank on what that stands for, but I know it's grants and research. So a lot of providers that are interested in grants use that site. And then we did a press release. So as I said, applications were available for submission via our Neighborly software. It's a grants management software that we use through the month of March. Once the application deadline passed, we did a quick review on those that were submitted to make sure that all of the applications were eligible, and they were. So at that point, we forwarded them on to outside reviewers who scored the grants using a standardized rubric through the Neighborly software system. For full transparency, we make the scoring rubric available on the website along with a copy of the application. So people who are writing the applications know exactly what they're going to be scored against while they're working on their applications. So from there, we take the scores for each individual application, and we take the average score for all of their reviews and give that particular application an average. And then we look at the average for each category. And if an application scores at or above the average for that category, we consider them for full funding. If our funding is not exhausted, once we finish that process, then we move down the line and start looking at applications that scored below the average. So with CDBG, our revenues always have to match our expenses. So we need to know going into the process how much money we're going to have. Our 21 allocation is $547,296. We estimate $30,000 in program income and then $125,000 in carry forward funding from previous years. So our budget for this year is just a little over $700,000. Then we start considering the two caps that we have to keep our funding within. Public services are capped at 15% of our annual allocation, and administration is capped at 20%. Bill? So for our annual action plan goals, they tie directly back to our consolidated plan goals. So preservation of the existing affordable housing stock is where the majority of our money goes, which is pretty standard across all of our action plans. The CDBG program is supposed to be primarily a housing program. So that's where we put most of our money. We will do some rehabilitation on rental housing. The housing units that we will address this year through that activity will be 2 properties owned by Bloomington Housing Authority, so public housing units that will get new boiler systems. And then Mayor's Manor has 26 supportive housing units, and they need new HVAC and ADA improvements. So we'll be focusing on those 3 activities for that. 20 units will be assisted with our housing rehabilitation program. And then we are estimating an additional 20 units will have CDBG funding leveraged against our lead hazard control and healthy homes money to come in and make sure that we have enough funding in each unit to fully make it a healthy home, removing not only lead, but also addressing other health hazards. And then we have rehabilitation soft costs as well. So about $407,000 is what we're dedicating towards preservation of existing housing stock. So the elimination of conditions in slum and blight, this is our demolition program. Our demolitions have typically for CDBG have been down over the past few years because we've been able to leverage other sources of funding. So we probably will do about 3 demolitions this year. 2 will be dedicated to Habitat to Humanity for construction of new affordable housing. And then 1 will just be removing, it's probably, wouldn't be a buildable lot. But we still need the funding to take it down, take the property down. So that is our demolition program. Bill? For the public services, at $90,554, we are right at our 15% cap with that. Typically, a lot of our grants that we have every year, the ones that score really high, because they meet not only a high priority need, but they're also identified in our comprehensive plan. The bottom 1, 2, 3, 5, KTB Financial is a new grantee this year. They provide financial services for low-income individuals, things like budgeting, helping with jobs and connecting to resources such as other sources of financial assistance. So we're excited to be able to offer add them to the portfolio for this year. Phil? For the quality services and public facilities, we actually don't have any new product or projects planned this year, but we have 2 2020 projects that were delayed because of COVID. And then with the increased costs of materials, they aren't going to be able to finish those projects with the funding that we originally set aside last year. So we're adding 2021 money to those projects so that we can get them completed. And with WBRP, their entrance is not ADA compliant. And so that's the activity that we'll be putting additional funding into. And then the West Bloomington sidewalk improvements is sidewalk improvements for ADA compliance along West Washington, and then also, West Market and on the corner of Washington and Allen. Phil? So the final goal is to administer the CDBG program in an efficient and cost-effective manner. So we have 3 activities that were programs, projects that will fund under this. We have our general administration, which is what you would think. It's staff, professional development, travel, postage, advertising, those types of things. But then under the CDBG administrative programs, we're required by regulation to meet several different types of regulations through CDBG as a HUD funding recipient. So one is called Section 3. And with Section 3, we are required to provide economic opportunities for low and moderate income individuals. So for many years, we've partnered with the Bloomington Housing Authority to provide Section 3 training for their public housing residents and housing choice voucher program participants. So that's one of the activities. The second is we have to affirmatively further fair housing. And so we have partnered, this will be the 3rd year, with Prairie State Legal Services to provide a fair housing program. And this past year, in addition to representing clients and providing outreach and education, in 2020, they added in a testing component to do fair housing testing, and we'll continue that into 2021 as well. And then for the planning activities, we do partially fund a planning position at the McLean County Regional Planning Commission that helps with kind of our long-range planning for how to make sure that we are maintaining our affordable housing stock, looking at supportive housing and those types of things. At $85,000, we are under our 20% cap by quite a bit. Phil? So that's kind of a high level overview of the action plan. It is available on the website if anybody really wants to dig into the whole plan. And so now if we could open it up for questions and comments, and then I guess there was nobody wanted to talk at the public hearing, so we're good there.
Yes, we are. So are there any questions from council members? I don't see any hands so far. Okay, Councilmember Crable.
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks, Jennifer, for that presentation. And just kind of looking through what you've presented, looks like when we're, one of the priorities was homeless services. And I noted that there was some money given to PATH. Is there anything in what we're giving other than that for homeless services?
Yeah, the recycling furniture for families also is addressing homeless services. So they are a resource that can be used when someone is housed but has no furniture to fill their apartment. So they've got a new apartment. They can go to we fund a part-time warehouse staff position so that there's someone there to make sure that the family that's exiting homelessness does have housewares, furniture, those types of things.
Great. And then also a priority was housing discrimination services. Is that the program you've got with Prairie States?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. And part of your presentation, you were referencing the number of homes that'll be rehabilitated rental housing at 47 for this year. Do you have a universe of like, you know, like how much housing is in need of that? Like if we, you know, had more money to give to that, like what's the universe of rental housing that needs improved in the community?
I actually don't, I don't have that information in front of me. So the 47 units are primarily those income qualified units they're the public housing units and then Mayor's Manor. The additional 20 units that we're going to address just with what's left of this fiscal year will be units that we're also going to put lead hazard control and then healthy housing money into. And we expect to kick that off hopefully later this summer. We'll be ready to start taking applications for that. We anticipate the need is going to be pretty big. And since that program is a pretty heavy lift, we actually are going to start with owner occupied housing because those programs are a little easier to manage. There's not as many restrictions. So our lead hazard control grant is 42 months. So for the first year, we're going to focus on owner occupied, and then we're going to branch out to rental and multifamily. So we fully anticipate that as long as we do a good job with that grant, we will have many cycles of that grant before we address all the need. In addition to lead, we can address other issues that are health and safety concerns. So I don't have an answer as far as the number. We know that it's big. And that we're working towards trying to come up with the programming that we can handle with the staff that we have to try to start addressing those needs, because it's not an area we've really addressed much in the past.
Right. Thanks so much, Jennifer.
Councilmember Ward.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of questions about the demolitions. Thank you for the report. It's very enlightening and helpful. But I also am curious about the demolitions that you mentioned. You mentioned 3, 2 for new construction and 1 for removal of blight. How does that compare to previous years generally?
I'm sorry, how does that compare to previous years?
Yeah.
It's pretty comparable. I've been with the city about 6.5 years, and we used to do about 6 to 8 demolitions a year through CDBG. But since then, we have brought in other sources of funding that we can do demolitions with. And so by not using our CDBG funding for demolitions and leveraging those other sources, then that frees us up to do other programming such as like the rental housing. I would say through our abandoned property program, with that and CDBG combined, we're probably still doing about the same number of demolitions. So like between 4 and 6 a year.
Okay. And then one other question about the demolitions, the ones that are on this list. I mean, do you know where they are? Can you tell us that?
I do not have that in front of me, but I can give you a list of, I can send it out separately. I'll have to look and see what we still have hanging out there on my list that we think we're going to be able to do this year.
Thanks. I'd appreciate that. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Ward. I think next is Councilmember Enoch.
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks so much for your work and the presentation, Jennifer. I'm wondering just a little bit more, big picture wise, how is the funding for, let me start again, is the funding for CDBG only provided through external applicants? In other words, is the city empowered at all to make some determination about how these funds might be spent if they meet the criteria that has been designated.
Are you referring to the applications that come in via the RFP?
Yeah. So, for example, you talked about sidewalk improvements at the corner of Washington and Allen.
Yeah.
How is something like that determined?
We actually even ask our other city departments to apply for funding.
Got it.
And that way, we use that grant management software program to manage the grants from application to closeout. So by having even our own departments apply for funding, everything is in one place and it's easier to keep track of.
I see. Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful in terms of clarifying the process. Thank you. That was my question.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Enig. I do not see any other questions, any other hands, and I know we do not have anybody registered to speak as well either. So, Jennifer, I'm going to thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, and at this time, the time is, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed, if I can see what time it is, at 6:31. Okay. So moving on to the regular agenda, item 10A, consideration and an action to approve an agreement with road construction for the FY 2022 general resurfacing program in the amount of $5,129,185.05 as requested by the Public Works Department. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to City Manager Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item every year is typically just on the consent agenda. But this year we thought that we would move it to the regular agenda. Know that this is probably one of the top 2 or 3 items that you as elected officials hear about is the condition of our roads. Very proud over the last couple of years, the amount of money that we have put in the improvements of our roadway and the preservation of the roads. And then also just trying to take an opportunity of telling our story, sharing the progress in the website that was created. And presentations by Public Works definitely are a key part of this. So thought I would turn this over to the Public Works Director, Kevin Cothe. He's only got a 2 or 3 slide presentation. This is all stuff that we've heard before, but prior to the recommended approval by council, thought that we would share it with the community more so one more time. Kevin?
Thank you, City Manager Gleason. Mayor and Council, this is something that you saw back in March when we went before you with the selection of streets and also asking for the permission to negotiate directly with road construction for our resurfacing. This map is also available on Bloomington Street's website. And, this year we have many more sections of streets listed because we have quite a few more in the residential areas this year. Last year, if you remember, we had some big major arterial roads such as Hershey and Stryden, 6 Points and some different locations that were bigger, longer stretches. This year we're focused a lot more in some neighborhoods. We still have some, streets in, arterial and collector locations, but a lot more in the residential. So the list of streets is much longer than last year. And as we go along, we'll update Bloomington Streets with information for the public about what streets are coming up and what streets have been completed, and also, pictures from the progress being made. And then the next slide, if I can get it to switch here. Yeah, there we go. Breaks out the funding this year. We had 7.2 million in the budget total. And we break that out into the different aspects of resurfacing and sidewalk repairs, pavement preservation. And so this pie chart shows you how the 7.2 million this year is being split between the different contracts. Tonight, you're considering the general resurfacing for just over 1.5 or $5.1 million, but Previously, we had the sidewalk vertical displacement contract at just under 90,000, the sidewalk and curb ramp replacement program at just over 1.1 million, and then the emergency multi-street alley and multi-year street alley and sidewalk repairs for just under 200,000. The one remaining that hasn't been brought before you yet is the pavement preservation. We're still working on that list of streets for this year, and that'll be coming to the council later. But the remaining budget is basically just under 700,000 for that. So this is how it breaks out this year. We're able to make the list of streets work with our negotiation with road construction and make it work within the budget. And we're excited to get this project moved forward. So real brief presentation tonight, just these 2 slides, and we'll open it up to any questions you might have.
Wow, that's awesome, Kevin. Right at 5 minutes. Very impressive. So we have questions from council members in this order. Councilmember Montney, Councilmember Craybill, Councilmember Massey, and Councilmember Ward. And remember, we have 5 minutes discussion, so we might have to extend if you'd like me to.
Hi, thank you, Kevin. Your pavement rating software, what percentage and number of the city streets are rated at 4 or below?
That's a great question. I don't know that off the top of my head. I'd have to look and see what that is, but we can get that for you.
Okay. And I this is not a scientific hypothesis here, but just at a quick look of your rating software relative to what's queued up for improvement, it looks like there's a whole lot of red out there that doesn't make the cut for improvement. I'm just wondering if that's directionally accurate.
The street ratings, we go out and try to rate roughly one third of the city streets every year. We don't, just to drive every street and get a new rating every year would take too much staff time. So we reevaluate basically every street every 3 years. The ones that are lower in the rating, we might evaluate every year just because of winters can be hard around here and streets don't all deteriorate at the same rate exactly. So but there, as you know, there is a need out there, and our ratings then are plugged into a software program that helps to prioritize the different streets and the different types of treatment, from pavement preservation to resurfacing and all that type of thing. And we do have a breakout of that stuff available as noted on Bloomington Street's website. People can look at individual ratings as well on streets, but I don't have those numbers right off the top of my head or in front of me right now.
Okay. So I understand the algorithm of that software also weights how much traffic that street gets, which is reasonable. But if one is on a street that's rated, and I guess there's not a 1 rating, at least based on looking at your website, it looks like the lowest might be a 2. It's conceivable that a street could be a 2 for a long time, maybe, and not get attention because maybe it's not a street that's traveled often. Would that be correct?
That's correct, because as you know, streets that have a much lower volume, such as in a residential area, they can hang on in a rough condition for quite a few years. But those streets that are the streets that carry a lot of the city traffic also carry a lot of truck traffic typically, and those streets will deteriorate much quicker once they get to a certain level of maintenance. We're out there all the time on some of the arterials to constantly filling potholes and that type of thing, where a residential street that might only have 100 cars a day doesn't take the same abuse as the arterial. So yeah, the software factors in the traffic volumes and the classifications as part of that analysis.
Okay. And while we've budgeted and we're spending money according to that budget, that doesn't catch us up. There are still a whole lot of streets out there that will be rated 2s, 3s, and 4s that, are kind of enduring in that state. Is that correct?
There is, and you know, just because a street's a 4, depending on what it is, you know, as far as a local street, that's not necessarily a bad rating. I mean, that can be a 4 can be a street that's you know, in a residential area with just a few potholes that have been filled, and it can be at that level for a long time, and you know, be successful. Does it look brand new? No, but you know, we're trying to, like I say, use the software to prioritize what will you know, give the most you know, bang for the buck, so to speak.
Right. So it's really those 2s and 3s that I should be looking at and thinking about as people have inquired. You know, if they're a 2 or a 3, maybe they have a shot at making the list.
Yeah, and remember too, you know, we try to use the software to group the streets together as much as possible, because our local contractor does give us better pricing if streets are, you know, contiguous or in the same neighborhood at least. So that's also something that's factored into that selection process.
Thank you, Kevin. Out of respect for time, I'll stop there. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Critter.
Thanks, Mayor. This will be quick. The residents of Ward 8 are very happy that Hershey Road is being worked on. You can see real progress, and so much appreciated. Thanks, Kevin.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And I see that we still have, we have at least 3 more hands up, and we should probably have a motion to extend time maybe by 10 minutes.
Motion
I'll
to
make
extend
that
by 10 minutes.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Matthew, and then looks like a second by Councilmember Ward. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Matthew,
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Correa,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Item passes, no nays to announce. So next is Councilmember Matthew.
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin, for presentation. As always, you have a remarkable insight into how we've got things set up here. I was just curious. I know in the past you have told us that one of the considerations into redoing a road is whether or not there's is infrastructure underneath of the road that we need to repair first, which totally makes sense. I wondered if there was a way that we as the council members could see which roads kind of have been set aside or pulled off of the repair list temporarily because they have been identified as there is foundational infrastructure that we need to repair first, so we can communicate that with residents of, you know, we always do get a lot of, you know, why is my road not on the list? It hasn't been worked on in 20 years. If I have the ability to say, well, we have water that's got to get done, or we have sewer that's got to get done, and we're working on a plan to do that, you know, that helps them understand what's going on a little bit. Is there a way where you can help us find which roads that's, you know, we've got to have other things fixed first before paving can happen?
We could provide something in that regard, Alderman Matthew. As you know, like Meadowbrook subdivision is an example of that, right? With you know, the roads and curb and gutter and sidewalks, everything's in really bad shape, but we want to get in there and fix the stuff underground first, new water main and so forth. So we do have that factored into the software we use that holds those streets until we can get those projects done. And we can, if you think it'd be worthy, we can probably even get that out on the Bloomington Streets website if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be good for people to know that why their road, you know, right now it's public access and anybody can see reds or greens on the bloomingtonstreets.com site. Plug for that for you guys. But if we could get the other part that says these ones, we know we have work we got to do first, and then people can contrast and compare to go, oh, my block on Madison Street is got this going on, that, you know, they can know we're aware, we're trying to create a plan to move forward. I do think that would help if it could get put out there.
We'll work on that.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate all the work you do.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Ward.
Yeah, thank you for your work on this and the presentation. A couple of questions about the sidewalk budget. How of what you were referring to tonight, how much of that is the 50-50 arrangement, and how much of it isn't?
Yeah, the sidewalk 50-50 program is typically in that 50-60,000 range for citizen participation. So overall, we're usually looking at about 100,000. Some years we have a great deal of participation, and other years not so much. We use all the money that's budgeted in the public budget, but obviously money goes a little bit further if we have private partners in it, and so that's why we do include that. But I have to look, but I think it's 50 or 60,000 for private participation this year, which would lead to 100 or 120,000 total.
So the vast majority then is not the 50-50 program.
That's correct.
And then is there any kind of a map out there? I'm sorry if it's out there already and I'm just not finding it, but is there any kind of a map on sidewalks like the one that you've been showing us with regard to plans for street repairs?
We do have a layer in the GIS internal that we use for our sidewalk ratings, and I don't know that we have it out on Bloomington Street, so I can look into that and see that a sidewalk rating isn't updated quite as frequently as the streets and so forth. But a lot of the sidewalk aspects deal with the resurfacing program. As we resurface streets, we're required to bring the intersections, the ADA accessible ramps up to code at the corners. And so a good part of the work is the sidewalks on those streets that are going to be resurfaced. And while we're there, we also work diligently to make sure that the sidewalk mid-block is all ADA accessible as well, because when we leave a neighborhood, we'd like to have everything accessible, for the neighborhood when we're done there. But there certainly is a lot of need across the city on sidewalks as well, as you know, and beyond the resurfacing program and 50-50, we try to prioritize the remainder of the money for people with needs and try to get to the complaints and the needs as quick as we can.
Well, I'd really just like to encourage, posting that kind of a map, because I think giving people an idea of what to expect it could be really useful.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Ward. Councilmember Becker.
Thank you. A couple quick follow-ups on questions other folks had asked. And I want to make sure I understand this, Kevin. As I understand it, the 7.2 million is enough if we started at a level playing field to maintain the roads the way we want, correct?
That is based on, the research and studies we've done, yes.
So that means that because we didn't start at a level playing field, that the 7.2 isn't enough to keep us going in the right direction. Therefore, what is the limiting factor on the work we do? If I told you you had 10 million, could you get the subcontractor to do more this year? Or is time and resources also part of it besides money?
It can be a factor of all those things. There is, competing interests, not just at the city of Bloomington, but, whether it's the town normal, the, state of Illinois, there's other work going on around. So that does factor into how much can get done in a year. But in general, the contractor locally has resources to do it. But like I say, there is competing interests.
So if we were to reallocate some portion of budget through some sort of discussion, there could be capacity to actually move us forward at a level that would get us closer to keeping up rather than just maintaining below where we're going to catch up.
Well, and there is a combination of strategy there as well with, pavement preservation and, newer technologies there, as well as, the resurfacing. Obviously, everybody wants a new street, but, there's ways to extend the life of the pavement as well. And so that's why we try to balance the budget to include pavement preservation strategies as well.
Okay, one last quick one, and thank you for that. similar to, I think it was Jamie that brought it up. I get a lot of questions. You went down my street 4 times last year and you cut up a square, a 20 by 20 square in 4 different places, but the road's still awful. And you left things that were, 20 feet down the road in horrible condition. I know there's reasons. I grew up in a concrete family. I know a little bit about that. Can we get that information out as to why we're doing what we're doing, where we're doing it? So when it's in Tipton, oh, this was to fix a water main. This was to fix, a sewer. That information would really help us keep support for the city and the workers that are doing good work, because we could answer with good, solid data. So if you could get us a little more information, I think that would be helpful.
We'll see what we can do there, Alderman Becker. I can't promise anything real quick because, as you know, city crews go out and patch streets for a number of reasons, and so adding that to our tracking list, we'll look at working on, but can't promise you anything real quick on that.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the little things. I'm talking about when they're actually, tearing up a section of the road or something a little more significant. Okay. But thank you.
Okay. Yep.
Sorry, Councilmember Monty.
I just have one more follow-up question about Alderwoman Ward's inquiries about the sidewalks. Do you track the injury reports from residents relative to the sidewalks? Is that a metric that the Public Works area tracks?
We don't track that right now. Not every injury is reported to the city either. Some file claims against the city's insurance and so forth. Some might file a lawsuit. Not every case is reported to the city. When they do report it to the city, we work very quickly to get barricades placed, where the hazard is, so that hopefully no one else gets injured before, we can get there to fix it, type of thing. But, obviously there's, across the city, a lot of sidewalk distresses that, could cause somebody to trip or fall. When we find out about them, we try to take care of them as quick as we can.
Is there anything we're doing proactively to find those before people unfortunately get injured or trip?
Yeah, not in particular. We'll do the the vertical displacement contract is to help eliminate those trip hazards, and we'll go through a neighborhood with that contract and work to eliminate all those in a certain neighborhood. But across the citywide, we don't track those.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other hands, is there a motion to approve the item as presented?
I'll make that motion to approve as presented.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Bolden, and I see Councilmember Ward with a second. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Matthew?
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin?
Yes.
Councilmember Montney?
Yes.
Councilmember Emig?
Yes.
Councilmember Becker?
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Ward?
Aye.
Councilmember Crable?
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. The item passes. There are no nays to announce. Next item on the agenda is consideration and action on an ordinance authorizing a lease agreement between the City of Bloomington and the Bloomington Normal Area Convention and Visitors Bureau for the lease space at the arena, as requested by the Administration Department. City Manager Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're actually very excited about this item. This is something that started late last summer, early fall. Credit for the idea actually goes to the former chairman of the CVB board, former county board member, Carlo Robustelli, and then also our former alderman, Scott Black. So the conversations started then. CVB is currently located out at the Central Illinois Regional Airport, have been for the past few years, and we thought our arena could be a perfect location, higher traffic, more visibility, I think it offers far more in terms of space, digital signage. It just made sense. Deputy City Manager Billy Tyus ran the lead on the negotiations or the walkthroughs with the team from the CVB made up of the different representatives. And we also have the Executive Director, Crystal Howard, on the call if there's any questions of her. But this is a lease for the administrative space that was formerly occupied by Venue Works, and also provides a retail opportunity at the street level, not the ticket windows, the secondary ticket windows, but that retail space that if anybody's ever been there for past hockey events, it's where some of the items were purchased, sold out of that location. I'm going to not necessarily turn it over to Crystal or the Deputy City Manager, but if there's any questions, they are available for response. Excited about this and request approval. Back to you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And it looks like we have Councilmember Bolin.
Yeah, I had the little sketch in front of me, and I'm assuming that on Exhibit A, the pink or coral colored is the office space, the large office space that's going to be converted for the employees. And then above that is a yellow looking thing. I'm assuming that is the suite that will be, no? Could somebody tell me what that is?
Go ahead, Billy, or Crystal.
Mayor and council members, that is actually conference room space that is available to be utilized for meetings and other events, but it is not the suite space. It is a space that is immediately adjacent to that.
Okay, so the coral is like the offices,
Yeah.
like they had at the airport, and then the yellow is conference. Where would the suite be located, or is that just a temporary option?
There are suites throughout the arena space that are often leased for events.
Okay.
And the thought for use of those by the CVB is when you have someone in town looking to sell them or using the arena, that those suites could be utilized to bring them in and show them, what you can do there. But
So
that
it's-
space is literally conference space.
Okay, so there's not going to be a specific suite set aside. It's just going to be if there's one available?
Correct.
Okay. And then on Exhibit B, that orange space, I guess, is that's where you used to be the concession or where you could sell stuff that you were referencing, correct?
That is correct. And we'll clarify the ticketing part of it as part of our finalization of it.
Okay. I'm a visual person, so
Get it.
I need to get, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Montney has a question.
How, if at all, would this impact future marketability of the space to another tenant? Say, for example, if the USHL hockey team came forward again, looking back at some of the financials, it almost looked like with a better agreement, they could have provided kind of a bread and butter income stream. Just curious about the implications of this for the future availability or marketability of the arena.
Alderwoman Montney, this was definitely an area that staff took into consideration along with the CVB board. This is one that they want to know what was the long-term use of the arena going to be. We feel very confident that we can share this space as we are looking at what the long-term viability of the arena is, the management company of the arena, if it is actually going to be outsourced at some point in the future, that we have additional space that we could turn into administrative suite space within the arena.
Well, I would think, a win-win there for people who do travel in to have the opportunity to visit the Bureau. I think that would be wonderful. I mean, I've been to the location at the airport, and this would be great to have it in a location where people could see all that they have to offer promoting the community.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Montney. Next, I believe we have Councilmember Matthew, correct?
Yeah, I was going to just agree with what Sheila said. I've been involved in some of the plans to try to get people to move to the area or bring their events to the area in the past. And I just think this is a brilliant idea, and just wanted to say congratulations to Billy and Crystal and everybody else who made this happen, because you know, everything about this is a win-win scenario. So good job, everybody.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Matthew. I do not see any other hands on my screen here. So I'm going to go ahead and ask for a motion to pass the item as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Montney, and I see Councilmember Becker with the peace sign.
It's crumbling.
I saw Becker.
Oh, we got two.
Arm wrestle for it, virtual? No? Okay, all right. So Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Matthew,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowling,
Yes.
Councilmember Montney,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo, Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The item passes. There are no names to announce. Next item is item C, and consideration potential action regarding ordinance 2028, ordinance extending local emergency due to COVID-19 virus and enacting various emergency measures. And I do not believe we have any changes. Is that correct, Manager Jason?
No, we don't, Mayor, but I did have a couple of comments regarding this in light of some of the updates out of the CDC and state of Illinois, if I could have just a couple of minutes.
Sure.
Right now, I think everybody's seen the updates from the CDC. We're in that bridge phase for the state of Illinois, as directed by Governor Pritzker. Some might be asking, so when does the emergency ordinance go away? At some point in the future. It's definitely not what we're recommending at this time. And I think I wanted to share with the community and with the elected body here that when we first enacted the emergency ordinance, a lot of this was to streamline and make possible things to accommodate the business community. Our emergency ordinance was not about enforcement in any of this with the pandemic. So someday when the emergency ordinance goes away, some of the things that were brought forward and used primarily for the business community, we are working to formalize those processes. This is something that would come before council at some point in the future. And then the other thing that I was going to share very quickly is some questions regarding in-person council meetings. We're still under the original Governor Pritzker administrative order or emergency order regarding meetings. And it's still a 10-person capacity, which is why you see our council electing to remain virtual. I just wanted to share those two. Like the mayor said, no requested modifications to the emergency ordinance at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, City Manager Gleason. At this point, we are going to move to the next item on the agenda, which is Finance Director's Report. And is Scott on the line, I'm assuming?
Finance Director is on the line, Mayor. And this is the end of month, for the last council meeting of the month. We always have the Finance Director's Report for the new members to the council. This is one that was created about 3 years ago, where we provide a snapshot. And a lot of times when we're talking the FY22 budget, COVID numbers, but our actual current FY21 financial summary and our current FY22 budget, this is that snapshot that we talk about at a 30,000 foot level, and can definitely take this a little bit lower if that's the request of council. Also, we continue to trend very well for a community amidst the pandemic. And again, I say that saying that there is a negative financial impact to our community, but we are doing very well compared to many other communities. And that credit does in fact go to the community coming out and consuming and supporting over the course of 15, 16 months amidst a pandemic. Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, City Manager Gleason. I was going to make a couple of general announcements. Initially, we did receive our first installment tranche, if you will, of the American Rescue Plan, for $6.7 million. So we put in our application for that, and that has been received related to the presentation we went through last week. So more conversations to come related to that, but an update there. The FY 2022 final adopted budget, we committed to having that online by the end of the month, and we are on schedule for that. So for the community, the full 2-book version and the budget and brief, which is being somewhat revamped, will be online by May 31st. So that's a tremendous resource for the community related to the projects planned for next year. So, it is May. We just ended our fiscal year, which ends on April 30th, but I want to highlight, and that is why I underlined the word preliminary here on this first screen. We have lagging revenue categories. Our sales taxes won't be finalized until next month in June. There's actually a 3-month lag in sales tax activity. The month of the sale occurs. The next month, the retailer remits to the state. The state then takes a month to compile the information, and then we receive our tax receipts that 3rd month. Our revenue policy only allows us to backdate 60 days, so that it even adds more confusion to the situation. So our June receipts will actually be from March sales activity, but we'll be backdating those to April. So this report is going to be consistent with the ones we've done previously through the year. In other words, this will be for activity that was booked by the end of April. Next month, when we do the financial director's report, we may spend a little bit more time. We'll be doing a period to date report. So revenues that were received at the beginning of June for sales tax, we'll include those. We're going to do this same financial report again next month. So again, this is preliminary year end. We're still using projections because we have a couple more months to go. We do have some visibility on May, but we won't be able to finalize and give you a somewhat close number until next month. Next slide, please. So to highlight what I just explained, if you look out to the right, you see the number of months collected. You can see that the state, the sales taxes are a month lag behind most of our other revenue categories. Replacement tax is a little bit of an oddball. We only receive 8 payments for replacement tax, which is a version of income tax related to pass-through entities. 8 payments through the year, so that one is actually finalized for the year. But as you can see, sales tax for this report, we've only received 10, and for the other categories, 11 months, still yet to finalize. Having said that, our revenues are really stabilizing, if not rebounding very well. If you look at the far right column, you can see the last month's variance. Home rule sales tax just 3.86% under budget. In home rule, we're budgeting up to $2 million a month in that category. You can see state sales tax was actually 12% over budget for the last month. Out of the 8 months reported here for state sales tax, only 3 months were under budget. So we're looking at doing very well on state sales tax for the year. Income tax, 20.55% through this period. We actually have received our final income tax payment in May for the year. We are anticipating that a majority of that $1.2 million that we had budgeted as that final income tax payment for the year will get pushed out into FY 2022 due to the deadline postponement. Same as last year, but when we did the budget for FY 21, we did not assume that that deadline would get pushed out again. But we actually beat the budget for the month for income tax. So that was a kind of a tremendous swing in what we were expecting. That income tax category has done very well for us for the year. Income tax and replacement tax, those two categories combined, they're finalized. Income tax is not reflected as finalized here, but with the May activity, those two categories have come in $1.6 million over budget year to date. So many businesses in the pandemic have fared very well. You know, the big box stores, online retailers, et cetera. And that has had a tremendous positive impact on the community. You know, that those swings that we experience as in income tax, that can drive our projections. So, you know, we keep our projections pretty conservative throughout the year, but when we're getting down to this this part of the fiscal year with basically one more month, you know, we get some confidence in adjusting those projections. So you're going to see that in a moment with the general fund. We've adjusted our projections upward for the year with that 1 month remaining. Next slide, please. So I'd like to draw your attention to the 1, 2, 3, 4th column with the red projection budget adjustments. So these are anticipated variances from budget as of now. Now we're still being conservative at this point in time. We still have another month of revenues to recognize, and those sales tax approximately $3 million a month. So they could swing dramatically. But at this point in time, if you look all the way down at the bottom, we have changed our projection to show a $1.3 million positive variance from budget. The prior month, we were basically at break even, but now with the recent developments in income tax, we're moving at the 1.3 million roughly. Now I want to highlight in that column, you can, at the very top, you can see that there's $3.16 million in local cure funds. So without that local cure, we would be at a $1.8 million negative variance to budget. Now the column next to that to the right is our projected year-end totals for those categories. So if you go down to the bottom next to the 1.3 million, you'll see a $599,000 net activity number. Now that's related to our planned use of fund balance. I know I'm jumping around on this exhibit, but the planned use of fund balance, upper left corner, very first line, 734,000. So a use of fund balance is basically a planned deficit. So we're using our reserves to pay for our activity. And that was related primarily to the pension, restricted pension reserves to fund our pensions. So we're showing a positive $1.3 million variance to budget, but within that we had a $734,000 planned deficit for the year. So that's why we're at the 599 net. I hope that makes sense, and we'll probably cover that again next month, but trying to highlight how that use of fund balance translates into an ending fund balance related to our net planned or unplanned deficit. The comment I'd like to make right now is, you know, our fund balance is in very good shape. We started the year at $24.9 million. Right now, due to that local cure funding or that grant that we received last year, we could potentially be looking at an addition to fund balance. But depending on how we finish the year and discussions with the city manager, we may be recommending doing a transfer related to capital projects. We have big funding needs that are coming down the road at the arena, The rooftop units there, $1 million each, are in very bad condition. So that might be a use of those funds once we get a better visibility on our surplus next month, as opposed to just adding that to fund balance, designated those two specific capital projects at council's discretion. Next slide, please. High level for the enterprise funds. You can see in the middle of the screen, budgeted use of fund balance, primarily related to budgeted capital projects. We are not anticipating utilizing that fund balance. A lot of those projects got rolled from year to year over on solid waste, pertaining to some of the discussions that we've had recently related to some of the struggles for that fund. We had a planned use of fund balance of $207,000, but you can see above that, 2 lines above that, the total year-to-date gain loss is at the 358. So we are exceeding the deficit that we had planned for the year in solid waste. And that correlates with the discussions that we are having currently related to services, et cetera, for that fund. Down at the bottom, revenue trend charges for services. We are through the end of the year, and those are not at the 100%, but with Munis, our new utility billing system, we're still working through the final accruals related to revenues there. So those are expected to true up here with year-end accounting that is yet to be made. The other highlight I wanted to point out is golf. A very positive year for golf. 93% revenues versus budget. I think that is something to celebrate. There's been a resurgence in golf. Chris Tomerlin, the budget manager, was commenting on an article you read about nationally there's been a resurgence. So it's a good thing for that fund and for the community in general. And that is it for tonight. Any questions at this point in time? Again, we will be doing April next month, or April, we'll be doing FY 2021 again next month. We will have complete visibility on all the revenues to that point. So a pretty good idea of where we're going to end the year. I mean, the audit literally takes 5 to 6 months for the audit to get complete. So the number will be moving for some time, but probably not materially after the beginning of June. So having said that, any questions or comments at this point?
I do not see any hands up.
Thank you.
No questions? Okay, awesome. All right. Thank you very much, Scott. Next item on the agenda is our city manager discussion. City Manager Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a couple of quick comments. Phil, if you would, display the first slide. Downtown Farmers Market, it's every Saturday morning, 7:30 to 12. I've actually been down there. We've had decent weather, and hopefully that continues. These are well attended, and you can tell they're very much appreciated by the farmers and the other vendors down there, and also the residents of the community. Next slide. Should be first Friday. Yes, June 4th, 5 to 8 p.m. Cogs and Corsets. This is one that is a highlight for the downtown, and hopefully in light of some of the changes from the CDC, this is very well attended. So this is coming up not this Friday, but next. Any other slides, Phil? And I do not think so. One thing that I wanted to share real quick is we just did finish up Public Works Recognition Week last week. So very appreciative to all the work that the Public Works team does for Kevin Cothe as the director. And that's all I've got tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, City Manager Gleason. Under Mayor's discussion, just wanted to thank City Manager Gleason and the staff for navigating through a very difficult set of circumstances. As you stated earlier, the the sudden decision by the CDC last week to change its guidance regarding the use of masks made it a bit challenging for us as a city to adjust. And given the diversity of individuals and groups that we have visiting our facilities daily, he and I had exchanges last week where we discussed the best course of action, and I believe what he just shared tonight reflects what best works for Wilmington, prioritizing safety, the safety of all involved. With that in mind, I again would encourage those that have not been vaccinated to do so as soon as possible, and for those who have not been, and for those who have not been vaccinated, to wear a mask wherever indicated, out of concern for the folks who are vulnerable to the virus and the folks that we all care about. So the other thing that I wanted to mention, remind people that next Monday is Memorial Day, and while we do not have a parade planned due to COVID, which is one that I always look forward to every year, I hope everybody has an opportunity to honor the lives of those who died while serving the U.S. military. And that is all I have for tonight. So we'll move next to council members' discussion. And let's see, Councilmember Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just wanted to let everybody know that Councilmember Carrillo did send an email in that she's been having internet issues, and you might have seen her connect and disconnect like 5 times as she's been fighting with internet issues trying to stay online. So just if people wondered why she was popping in and out, she let us all know that it was a problem that she's been experiencing tonight. I also wanted to say thank you to everybody in finance and administration who got us through the craziness that was the 2021 budget year. We had to do some fast pivoting and changes on the fly, and they made it happen, and we came out of it. Some of the projections that they put forward early on, I was like, oh God, I hope that doesn't happen. But we were pretty spot on. So that really says something about the group of people that just kind of nailed that whole process there and made it so we had realistic information to operate from throughout the year as well. And then the final, yeah, I saw that, Julie. Thank you. Yeah, everybody should be clapping for them for making it so that this worked out pretty well. And then the final thing I was just going to say is, once we get back to meeting in person there, I really hope that we can figure out a way to give people traveling on business the option of using Zoom to connect in, because as somebody who travels and had to miss several meetings a year, or dial into them, this experience is so much better than the old dial-in system that we had to use before. That was just painful. And so, I'm really hoping that Craig and the IT team can come up with a way, and it probably involves Jeff as well, to make it so that we can legally use Zoom or something similar to this to connect in for people who are traveling on business. So, because I was just reflecting the other day of how bad the prior experience was compared to that. And that's it. I hope everybody has a great weekend coming up, and thank you for pointing out the remembrance part of Invoca on Memorial Day.
Thank you, Councilmember Matthew. I do remember those days of dialing in. It wasn't fun at all. Councilmember Crumpler.
Actually, this is actually a follow-up to Jamie's comment. I guess I wondered, in terms of going back to meeting in person, and maybe City Manager Gleason could answer this. Are we just waiting for the governor's change of instructions, or is this something that the group has some input in? I guess I'm just wondering what the process is for moving back to a face-to-face meeting format.
Alderman Crumpler, we do have the ability now that if any of the elected officials chose to be in person, we can make that accommodation. even the current dais here at the City Hall, where the city clerk and myself have been this entire time. If I had all of my council members choose to return to in-person, we could set this up with plexiglass and sort of stretch out a little bit into the walkway area so that we're safely distanced for the blend of those that have been vaccinated or have not been vaccinated. So it's really, it's up to you.
Hey, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Crable.
Thanks, Mayor. Just wanted to let everybody know that my next town hall is going to be June 7th, 2 weeks from tonight at 6 o'clock. I've got information on my Facebook page. It's going to be by Zoom. I also wanted to note in remembrance that tomorrow marks the 1 year since George Floyd was murdered by a Minneapolis police officer. And since then, 181 Black people have been killed by police. So we can continue to try to do better. And also wanted to point out that, you know, interactions between the police and residents, you know, isn't just necessarily sometimes harmful to community. It's also harmful to our police officers. Noting the tragic death of Champaign police officer Chris Oberheim over the past week related to a domestic disturbance. So I hope we can look at, you know, as a nation, as a community, on ways that we can reduce those interactions or make them safer. And one last thing, Juneteenth celebration, I believe, starts on June 14th, which is the Monday of our next meeting. Through June 19th, it's going to be virtual. There's going to be presentations, I believe, 6 p.m. Every night. And then Saturday, there's going to be a panel discussion. Where do we go from here? And then some celebration performances. I'm not sure if those will be virtual or in person. But just wanted to share that, and hopefully some more information will be shared so the community can join as well. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Crable. I do not see any other hands. And I believe we do not have an executive session. So at this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Boland, second by Councilmember Ward. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Hi.
Okay, awesome. Have a great week and